When was the last time you saw a group of riders in their 20s roaring down the highway on brand new Harleys? Probably not, since you were their age. Harley Davidson, once the heartbeat of motorcycle culture, is now in big trouble. A reported $1 million loss that resulted in closing of famous showrooms and decisions that have left even loyal fans shaking their heads. What happened to Harley Davidson? Where did it all go wrong? Stay until the end today. We've got breaking news and brand new discoveries about why the brand is dying. Harley Davidson just shared a shocking report. The company has lost a staggering amount of $117 million in just a span of 3 months. A shocking news to the bike community. A company that created bikes that not only created millions, but also gave billions of nostalgia, memories, and a symbol to American pride. But now, that meaning has been forgotten by Harley itself. But what made Harley Davidson different from the other brands? There's a deeper meaning to why Harley Davidson was the top of the top bikes at its time. It was not just a moving machine, it was culture. Harley's cultural unraveling. Harley Davidson's decline isn't just a financial footnote, it's a cultural unraveling. For generations, Harley wasn't just a brand. It was a symbol of freedom, of rebellion, of American grit. It stood for the lone wolf riding into the sunset, for the diesel-stained heartbeat of the Rust Belt, for the idea that some things were meant to be loud, raw, and unapologetically individual. For millions of baby boomers, it wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a midlife revelation, a chrome-plated statement of who they were and what they stood for. But time moves fast, and culture moves faster. Younger generations, the ones Harley desperately needs to survive, are simply playing a different game. They grew up in a hyper-connected, climate-anxious, economically fragile world. They're less interested in symbolism, more interested in sustainability. Less about muscle and chrome, more about modularity and meaning. As one cultural analyst put it, Harley represents a version of America that younger generations are no longer trying to become. The tragedy isn't just that Harley's losing money, it's that it's losing meaning. A culture that could not be replaced. But what was really behind those curtains? The most eye-widening revelation that has been ignored through these years. The beginning of the fall. Over the past decade, Harley Davidson has taken a hard fall. Once a powerhouse of American industry, its stock has steadily declined, shedding nearly 2/3 of its value and leaving once confident investors questioning everything. By the close of 2024, shares had sunk below $30, a dramatic reversal from the $26 million profit recorded just 1 year earlier. But the financial damage is only part of the story. Behind the numbers lies a deeper struggle. Global motorcycle sales have been cut in half, and U.S. revenue is down by over 1/3. The roar that once echoed across the highways of the world has quieted, and with it, the certainty that Harley's legacy would always ride on untouched. Harley Davidson's financial crisis hasn't just hit Wall Street, it's rippled through the heart of its riding community. Dealerships once considered landmarks, like Los Angeles Harley Davidson, have shut down for good, alongside many other long-standing locations across the country. But these weren't just showrooms. They were gathering places where riders swapped stories, built friendships, and passed the torch of the Harley tradition. With every closed door, a piece of that shared history disappears, leaving gaps that rivals are now eager to fill. The bikes may be steel, but the culture they carried was deeply human, and it's slipping away, one empty dealership at a time. Shockingly, it's not only time that was at fault for the iconic brand to fall. There was a person who was mainly the reason for the brand's dying identity, a person who only cared about numbers, not meaning. Harley's decisions. There was a time not long ago when Harley Davidson set its sights on the future. Under the CEO Matt Levatich, the company rolled out the More Roads to Harley Davidson initiative, a rare moment of risk-taking from a brand often accused of living in its past. It birthed bikes like the Pan American, powered by the new Revolution Max engine, a liquid-cooled modern heart for a company that had long run on nostalgia. But in 2020, Jochen Seitz took the handlebars and yanked the wheel hard in the opposite direction from where it was heading. His new playbook, the Hardwire strategy, a name as cold and clinical as the plan itself. Seitz ditched dreams of expansion and doubled down on squeezing more profit from fewer bikes. The idea was simple: sell less, earn more per sale. As one industry voice put it bluntly, Seitz is proud to shrink the brand as long as the margins get fatter. And sure, on Wall Street, the numbers can be dressed up. When you buy back millions of shares, earnings per share go up, even if real-world sales go down. Investors love that trick, but like all magic acts, the illusion depends on what you don't see. A skeptical analyst painted it like this: Harley's acting like someone stockpiling toilet paper during a crisis, hoarding shares instead of solving the real issue. In 2019, earnings per share stood at $1.50, with over 154 million shares on the table. Now, with more than 18 million shares bought back, EPS may look slightly higher. But that's not more money earned, it's just the same pie cut into fewer slices. Worse still, the buybacks aren't fueled by record profits, they're often paid for with borrowed money or dwindling cash reserves. It's like fixing a leaky roof by repainting the living room. It looks better until the next storm hits, and the storm is coming. Harley's core buyers are aging out, and the younger generation? Many aren't even looking Harley's way. While other brands are planting seeds for the future, Harley might be pruning itself into irrelevance. Did Harley forget about time existing? Ask most riders born after the Reagan era, and you'll hear a familiar refrain. Harley-Davidson feels like your dad's bike, maybe even your grandfather. The brand that once roared through America's cultural veins now struggles to keep pace with a world it helped shape, but no longer seems to understand. Harley's long-standing image of freedom, leather, and loud pipes hit home for boomers who grew up on rock and roll and open highways. But millennials and Gen Z, they're less interested in rebellion through engine noise and more concerned with affordability, sustainability, and identity that isn't tied to a flag or a mustache. And here's the problem: you can't market your way around. Older people don't buy many motorcycles. Dead people buy none. The real tragedy? Harley doesn't need a new engine. It needs a new generation. And right now, that generation is walking past the showroom without even glancing in. But that is not the only thing that's stopping them from growing. The prices of Harley-Davidson have become a problem that they won't fix, forgetting that that is the most important thing, especially in the eyes of buyers. Questionable rise of prices. Most buyers today care about cost versus value. And when it comes to Harley-Davidson, the numbers just don't add up. We'll start the prices at the entry level. A used Sportster Iron 883, a bike that makes roughly 40 horsepower and will still run you $7,000 to $8,000 if not, it's higher. Such price is not exactly beginner-friendly pricing, and when you compare it against used Japanese bikes in the same bracket machines with better suspension, sharper handling, and double the performance, the value gap becomes hard to ignore. Now let's get into their prices more. A limited edition paint job? That's $5,000 just for paint. Especially for touring bikes, it is regularly near the $30,000 mark, pushing into territory where buyers could cross-shopping luxury cars or high-end adventure bikes that can cross continents. As one critic said flatly, people can't afford houses right now. Who's lining up to finance a $30,000 weekend toy? It's a fair question. In a world where two-income households are budgeting for groceries, Harley still operates like it's 1986, when a shiny new bike meant you'd made it. Now, it just means more monthly payments. Even veteran motorcycle journalists, people who live and breathe bikes, often admit that they wouldn't personally spend this kind of money on a Harley, especially not when the technology feels dated and the performance doesn't match the price tag. And here's where it gets thorny. Harley's entire business model relies on buyers taking out loans for machines they mostly use on weekends. That might have worked in a different era, but today, when consumers are thinking harder than ever about value and versatility, a big, expensive cruiser with middling tech just doesn't make sense for most riders. At this time of day, Harley should care how to create and sell their bikes that are suitable for the buyer's pocket, and practicality is a must. But Harley seems to have forgotten about such an important thing when it comes to building their bikes. Too much bike, not enough reason. For all their legacy and swagger, Harley-Davidsons often fail the basic test of practicality. Starting with the weight. Even Harley's more approachable models tip the scales like they are built from railroad steel. A bagger can weigh over 800 pounds majestic on the interstate, but miserable in tight spaces, urban traffic, or your apartment complex's slanted parking lot. For anyone commuting or riding daily, that bulk becomes a burden. Then there's the question of what you're actually getting for the price. Other manufacturers, especially the Japanese and European brands, have spent decades refining their bikes with state-of-the-art electronics, lightweight materials, fuel efficiency, and rider-focused design. Harley, you're often paying more for less. And let's be honest, the average Harley buyer probably ends up dropping a few more grand in chrome and bolt-ons before even riding 100 miles. Maintenance doesn't help the argument either. Air-cooled engines, while iconic, require more hands-on care and tend to run hot in slow traffic. Repairs aren't cheap, and Harley's dealership network often charges a premium not for better service, just for the name on the wall. Some riders accept that as part of the culture, but others are starting to ask, what am I actually buying here? Questioning their life choices, Harley is still seen in public, just not as a bike. The Harley logo has changed from an icon to a laughingstock for new generation, showing a Harley without a Harley. The brand identity breakdown. For decades, Harley-Davidson wasn't just a motorcycle company. It was an attitude, a symbol, a wardrobe, a tattoo idea. Ever since clawing its way out of the AMF-era nosedive in the 70s, Harley doubled down on becoming a lifestyle empire. The strategy worked for a while. Logos were stamped on everything from leather jackets to whiskey tumblers. You could walk into a mall and buy Harley-Davidson pajamas without ever seeing a bike. And that's part of the problem. Today, the brand is more visible than the motorcycles themselves. And not in a good way. T-shirts, bumper stickers, coffee mugs. Harley is omnipresent in consumer culture, but strangely absent on the streets. There are entire Harley stores that don't even sell motorcycles, just merch soaked in tough guy Americana. For younger people, though, this image doesn't scream. Cool, it whispers cringe. Sure, Gen Z might rock vintage Harley tees, but they wear them like a joke they're in on, not a lifestyle they want to live. The slogans are worn with ironic detachment. The skulls and eagles part of a costume, not a creed. Harley's once proud identity has become a punchline on TikTok. And here's the real kicker. The company hasn't made a meaningful effort to evolve. The classic tough guy on a cruiser in wraparound sunglasses aesthetic still dominates everything from their ads to their apparel. That brand of patriotism, hyper-masculine, flag-waving, and leather-clad doesn't resonate with younger generations who see identity as fluid, inclusive, and less tied to cliches of rebellion. Worse still, Harley's corporate messaging is now split between two incompatible worlds. On one hand, they're promoting investor-focused initiatives like ESG compliance and sustainability goals, while on the other, still trying to sell the image of a chrome-dipped outlaw who drinks Jack Daniels and doesn't care what you think. And if you're wondering whether it's possible to be both an eco-conscious ESG darling and the symbol of don't tread on me defiance, neither side is buying it. In trying to appeal to everyone, Harley's brand risks appealing to no one. The older loyalists feel alienated by the corporate pivot. The younger crowd sees the whole thing as outdated cosplay. What once felt authentic now feels manufactured, and authenticity is the one thing a brand like Harley can't afford to fake. Harley has been making people shake their heads from its own decisions, so they tried going modern, which resulted in the most disappointing creation ever, making even its own riders disappointed. Harley's struggle to evolve. You see, Harley-Davidson didn't sleep through the call for modernization, they answered it. But the response often felt like a rushed term paper, technically delivered, but missing the heart, timing, and execution to actually work. Their most daring step forward came with the Livewire, an electric motorcycle meant to catapult Harley into the 21st century. It launched to a wave of headlines and cautious optimism until riders got a closer look. Traditional Harley loyalists felt like the brand had traded soul for silence, swapping that iconic thunderous roar for a quiet whir and a sky-high sticker price. At nearly $30,000, the Livewire didn't just alienate the faithful. It baffled potential new buyers who could get more range, better tech, and deeper practicality elsewhere. Even worse, the bike's performance didn't match the promise. Limited range and long charging times meant it was more showpiece than road warrior. Eventually, Harley distanced itself by spinning Livewire off into a separate EV brand, a move that looked less like vision and more like corporate triage. And the missteps didn't end there. The Street 500 and 750 built to be urban-friendly starter bikes fell flat with almost everyone. Die-hard fans dismissed them as too plasticky, too underpowered, and too far removed from Harley's gritty legacy. And first-time riders? They often look to Japan, where beginner bikes deliver real value and reliability. For many, the streets felt like Harleys in name, only riding on heritage branding, but without the soul or performance to back it up. At every turn, Harley seems stuck in a paradox. Change too much, and you lose the identity that built the brand. Change too little, and you lose relevance in a world moving fast. So far, Harley's attempts at balance have felt more like hesitation than reinvention. But the problem does not stop there. Even with struggles that can be fixed easily, Harley refused to change its prices, making not only people mad, but also its own supporters. In other words, baiting its own buyers. Betraying the builders. Harley's right to repair backlash. If there's one thing Harley riders have always loved besides the open road and the roar of a V-twin, it's wrenching on their own bikes. Customization is woven into the DNA of Harley culture. For decades, the brand celebrated that identity, selling motorcycles not as finished products, but as blank canvases. Paint it, chrome it, tune it, make it yours. But in recent years, that ethos has begun to feel like a bait and switch. In other words, you buy the bike for $20,000. Then you're encouraged, even to drop another $5,000 to make it sound right, ride right, or even run properly. But if you install anything that doesn't come from Harley's own Screamin' Eagle catalog, your warranty could vanish like tire smoke. The irony isn't lost on Harley's community. For a company that built its legacy on freedom and self-expression, this policy feels like a betrayal, especially when that community has arguably done more than the company itself to keep the brand cool, loud, and visible. Yes, every manufacturer needs to draw a line when it comes to major modifications, but Harley's version of the rulebook feels punitive, especially when the bikes are arguably under-equipped from the factory, nudging owners to mod from day one. For the veteran riders, the ones who bleed orange and black, this corporate clampdown isn't just a legal issue, it's a violation of trust. The guy who proudly installed a Stage 1 kit in his garage used to be Harley's poster child. Now he's a potential liability. And when you alienate the people who live and breathe your brand, who share it with friends, who pass it down to their kids, you're not just losing customers. You're severing the lifeline that kept Harley-Davidson alive through decades of change. But as clear as day, Harley seems to ignore this, continuing its downfall, and surprisingly, others are celebrating such an event. Its other competition started to move, pushing Harley-Davidson out of people's eyes, raising itself from the grave, burying Harley themselves. The competition problem. While Harley fumbled, the world rode on. Harley-Davidson sat atop the mountain of American motorcycling, confident in its chrome-plated kingdom. But while it rested, the wolves began circling. And now, Harley isn't just fighting for growth, it's fighting for survival in a market it used to own outright. Take Indian motorcycles. Once a ghost brand from America's past, it's been resurrected with purpose under Polaris Industries. And unlike Harley's identity crisis and abandoned experiments, Indian doubled down on what works. Classic styling, V-twin thunder, and modern engineering that doesn't require nostalgia goggles to enjoy. The Chief, the Scout, the Challenger. These bikes aren't just competent, they're confident. They feel like the bikes Harley should have been building, but didn't. Then there are the Japanese giants. Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, brands that have never stopped evolving. While Harley was debating whether or not to electrify its soul, Honda was stuffing every bit of 21st century wizardry into the Goldwing. Radar cruise control, Apple CarPlay, armrest heaters. A luxury tourer that actually tours. Meanwhile, the Rebel 300 and 500 offer simple, lightweight cruisers that don't demand a second mortgage or a back brace. The Japanese bikes may not have the same cultural mystique, but they have something Harley forgot to chase: trust. European manufacturers have also slipped in through Harley's blind spots. Triumph's Bonneville lineup is everything the modern retro crowd wants: lightweight, stylish, and respectful of its past, without being chained to it. The Thruxton and Speed Twin are crisp, lean machines with just enough muscle to remind you they're alive. And then there's Royal Enfield. Once an underdog with a shaky rep, it's now pumping out charming, approachable bikes like the Meteor 350 and Interceptor 650 lightweight, affordable, classically styled, and easy to live with. For the price of one entry-level Harley, you could almost buy 2 Enfields and still afford a weekend trip. Even BMW has quietly crept into cruiser territory with the R18 Germany's straight-faced attempt at Harley's own game. It's big, heavy, and arguably more Harley than Harley. shaft-driven, machined like a panzer, and unapologetically overbuilt. All this while Harley has been stuck between image rehab and product schizophrenia. As one veteran dealer said bluntly, "We used to be the only bar in town. Now every street corner got something smoother, cheaper, or just plain cooler." In the past, Harley sold a dream, but somewhere along the way, it forgot to evolve that dream. And while it clings to the past, its rivals are busy building the future. Sales going down, reputation turning to a laughingstock of society, and having a difficult time to find answers for their problems. There is no doubt that the company's future will be in the most difficult position it has ever been, leading a crossroad ahead. The road ahead, tradition at a crossroads. Harley-Davidson still stands tall, but it's standing at a crossroads. Yes, the company retains formidable strengths, one of the most recognizable brands on the planet, a nationwide dealership infrastructure, and a fiercely loyal, if aging, fan base. But make no mistake, the road ahead is steep, and the engine that once roared with cultural power now sputters against the winds of change. To survive the next decade, Harley must do something it hasn't truly done in decades: change with conviction. That doesn't mean abandoning its heritage. Quite the opposite. It means distilling what made Harley iconic, not just chrome and noise, but the feeling of freedom, identity, rebellion, and expressing that through machines that matter to modern riders. Lighter, smarter, more affordable bikes that still carry the soul of a Harley. Motorcycles that don't require a second job, a chiropractor, or a thick skin for dealership markups. It also means embracing technologies the company once resisted. Rider aids, connectivity, electric drivetrains are not as gimmicks, but as extensions of the riding experience. Tools that make a Harley more of what it's meant to be, not less. Perhaps most of all, it means healing a relationship with customers, both old and new. That means respecting the custom culture without punishing it, supporting the right to repair, offering value without tricks, and learning to communicate in a way that doesn't rely on cliches of bald eagles and barbed wire, because the motorcycle world has already changed, and Harley-Davidson can no longer coast on past glory. As one industry insider said, "The motorcycle industry is changing fast, and only the brands that adapt will survive." They weren't being dramatic. They were being honest. Harley-Davidson isn't just a bike brand. It's a living fragment of Americana, a symbol, a sound, a smell, a memory burned into the asphalt of history. Whether it becomes the phoenix that rises again, or a museum piece collecting dust, depends on what happens next. Because this isn't just about motorcycles, it's about identity, evolution, and the willingness to ride into the unknown. The story of Harley isn't over, but the next chapter will be the hardest one yet. What do you think will happen to Harley-Davidson as days come faster than they think? Will they be able to survive? Share your thoughts below.